Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Hausdorff Reads the Bible. Today I'm reading Genesis 1. Now, I hope I have a few new viewers because, well, today is really a good day to get started. And if you're an old viewer and you have some friends that you think might enjoy this program, one of the ways you could really help me out is to tell them. And today would be a great day to jump in because we're starting at the beginning of the Bible. For those of you who are new, about a year ago, I started this project to read the Bible. I read a chapter every day. I started with the New Testament. We recently finished. I just circled back around. We're starting with Genesis today. And I read the Bible. I do my own commentary. And then I look back. I look over some commentary from Christians. And I see what they had to say and then respond to that. And I have a blog as well that I have all the details written down. And generally the idea that I have doing both the podcast and the blog is a little bit redundant, and I figure some people might like one or the other, or some people have told me they sort of, whatever's more convenient. Some days they'll read the blog, some days they'll listen to the podcast, and I think one or the other will do. It's sort of more or less the same information. And of course, if you listen to the podcast, if you want to reference something, the blog is a good reference. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with today's reading. It is there's one section today. It's the creation of the world, and I was afraid that there wasn't going to be a lot to expand on today. But it turns out there's a million things to say, especially given that I read some commentaries, and some of the stuff they said was, well, it was kind of insane. So, let's dig in. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Seems pretty simple, and yet, I already have an aside from one of the commentaries. Now, this was from Guzik, and he says, so he was hung up on the word created here, and he says the following. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This tells us that God used no pre-existing material to create the earth. The ancient Hebrew word bara, which is created, is specific. It means to create out of nothing, showing that God created the world out of nothing, not out of himself. Okay, so he's going with this whole idea that, God created... he made all of the matter, I guess. He created all of the matter himself. And his justification for this is that there's this Hebrew word bara that means created out of nothing. And honestly, I'm just going to go ahead and call bullshit on him, because I don't think there's a Hebrew word that specifically means created out of nothing. And here's why. When's the last time a human being has ever created something out of nothing? I'm going to say never. It's never, ever, ever, ever happened. Because how do we create things? First of all, I don't even know what nothing is. We have, suppose you were to create a chair. What do you make the chair out of? Well, it was wood. Before that, it was a tree. Before that, it was a seed and, all the nutrients that made the tree. We're taking existing matter and rearranging it, and that's what we mean by create. I don't believe him that there's a Hebrew word that means create out of nothing, because why would there be? But I'm not just going to use, logic like that. I'm going to go ahead and look it up. And so I went to the Bible Lexicon. It's this great little website that the Wise Fool pointed me towards a little while ago. And it says, let's see here. Here it is. Bara means to shape, create. To shape. That sounds like what I'm talking about. You have some stuff, you shape it, and you create something else. So already, this Christian commentator Guzik is way off base as far as I'm concerned. All right, continuing with the reading. The earth was without form and void. Okay, I don't really know what that means. I looked to the commentaries for that. Basically, they seem to agree that there was some kind of chaos going on, but I'm not really sure what that means. And darkness was over the face of the deep. Now, this was something that didn't even jump out. It didn't even register with me. But I found a quote in Guzik that just made me laugh because of its ridiculousness. So his response to this phrase was, "This may describe a sense of resistance to the moving of the Holy Spirit on the earth." Darkness over the face of the deep. Anyway, continuing with his quote, some speculate this was because Satan was cast down to the earth and resisted God's plan, though his resistance was futile. So this little phrase, he's just run with and said, well, that means Satan was on the earth already. So first of all, where would this even come from? Why would you come up with this idea that Satan was down there? And is there another reason why it might have mentioned that there was darkness on the earth? Maybe it's because God's about to say, let there be light. He was saying there was only darkness before, and now God created light. That is a much more reasonable answer to this. So, I don't know. I thought that was worth mentioning just because of its complete ridiculousness, and I don't know. It makes me wonder if these guys are even taking this seriously. All right. Anyway, moving forward. Let's see here. Let me just read that last verse again because I had to stop twice. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the water. That's interesting, and I want to come back to it later. God was hovering over the water. So we've got God created earth, heaven and earth, and there's water. Okay. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. Okay, so God created light, and he separated light from darkness, which is a little bit weird because darkness is just the absence of light. So there's something a little funky here. But let's just give him the benefit of the doubt and say that what this really means is that it says he created the night and day. So he's creating this cycling, So fine, fair enough. I mean, it's a little weird the way they're phrasing it, but whatever. He's creating day and night. Okay, now this one gets a little weird. This is going to be the second day. Basically, God creates heaven on this day. And God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the water that were above the expanse, and it was so. And God called the expanse heaven. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. Okay, so God created heaven. So we've got this earth, and the earth is all water. And he created this expanse that had water above it and water below it. So there's a couple of things that I want to address here. First of all, what exactly does this mean? Because there wasn't heaven before. So first of all, oh God, there's like a couple of different points that I want to mention simultaneously. So let's say at this point we've got the ocean below, and then we've got heaven, or we've got the heavens, which I think can just be sky is what they're talking about. You've got sky. And then above that there's more water. So do they think there's a giant reservoir of water above the sky? Is that what that means? That kind of sounds like what it means. And before that, was it just that it was like there was an infinite amount of water? Now, one thing, I'm certainly no expert on ancient cosmology, but my understanding is they kind of viewed the world as almost like a snow globe. You've got Earth on the bottom, you've kind of got this, and you've got this dome on the top, and across the dome is like the sun and the stars and the moon and all that crap. And then heaven is kind of above that. So I'm guessing they think that there's sort of, there's the earth that at this point is all water. Now God has taken this snow globe and sort of pushed out some of the water to be above it. And so you've got all of this air above us, and then there's, the water like above that. So I'm guessing they imagine that there's kind of this lower ocean and upper ocean, and I guess the upper ocean is leaking or something. I don't know. It's a little confusing. But God has created the sky at this point. I remember a couple verses ago, he talked about God hovering over the water. How could he be hovering over the water if at that point there was no sky? There was no heavens? Like, this whole thing kind of doesn't really make sense. But now, okay, let's go back to this whole, two different reservoirs of water thing. Obviously, this is kind of garbage. And so I was curious. What the various Christian commentaries would say about this. And I have 3 different ones who justified it basically the same way. Guzik says, here the Bible recognizes the existence of water vapor in the sky. Matthew Henry says, well, I'm not going to, they're kind of long. You can see the details, but basically they're saying, oh, he's talking about clouds, he's talking about water vapor. But the problem with that is there's water vapor in the entire, like in the air everywhere. So there's no real separation if you're talking about water vapor. So I think that's kind of a lame explanation for this. But to think that they see their world as kind of a snow globe and there's water above the globe and God is giving us this little pocket of breathable air in between, like that makes more sense given that that's my understanding of what they really thought of. I mean, they basically thought the stars were just pinpricks of light in this sort of, you know, thin film of paper above us or something. So anyway, there's that. Moving forward, so that was the second day. We're on to the third day. And God said, oh, no, wait, that's the second day again. Okay, sorry, I'm on verse 9. And God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. All right, so we're in the third day. So far, God has taken all the dry land, or he's sort of rearranged the oceans and presumably pulled up some land. So now we have, instead of just having ocean, we have ocean and land. Fine. And God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seeds, and fruit trees bearing fruit in which their seed, according to its kind, on the earth. And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kind, and trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the third day. Okay, so we got dry land, we got plants everywhere. So let me just read you a quote from Guzik here. It's about that whole according to its kind thing. Let's see. This phrase appears 10 times in Genesis chapter 1. It means God allows variation within a kind, but something of one kind will never develop into something of another kind. All right, so let's just think about this. This book, these verses that I'm reading, this is largely the basis of why creationists do not accept evolution. If you think about that and read and look at what I'm actually reading, that seems even more insane. Like, I sort of always have this abstract idea that there's these creationist people who think, oh yeah, you know, I have this biblical idea of creation. But if you look at the actual words in here, what's actually written, this is obviously not God-breathed. This is obviously the myths of some ancient people who didn't understand science at all, who didn't understand the world, they didn't understand space. And kind isn't even well defined. Is kind a species, or is it a group of species? All right, anyway, I better move on, or I'm going to be talking about that all day. Okay, we're on day 4. Oh, wait, did I have anything else to say on day 3? No, I got that. And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs. So, let them separate the day from the night. Didn't God do that on day 1? And let them be signs, So we set lights, okay. He said to set lights in the expanse. He's talking about stars. We're putting stars on top of the snow globe. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them, so signs, and I assume that's talking about astrology or some other analog of astrology. And let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens and to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made the 2 great lights. The greater light to rule the day, clearly the sun, and the lesser light to rule the night, again, clearly the moon. And, the lesser light rules the night and the stars. And God set them in the expanse of heaven to give light on the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the 4th day. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about here. First of all, he seems to be redoing work from day 1, because on day 1 he created light and he separated the day from the night. Now he created the stars, the moon, and the sun, and he again separated day from night. So it seems a little bit confused itself. Okay. Oh, yeah. This one, so this first thing I want to mention, it's just kind of stupid, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it in there anyway because it's stupid. So Guzik said the following. God knew exactly how far to set the sun from the earth. A few million miles more or less, and life as we know it would be impossible. So this is just wrong. For those of you that don't know, the earth doesn't stay the exact same distance from the sun all the time. In fact, it's elliptical. It's somewhat close to a circle, but it's not. And I looked it up, and I have a link to the Wikipedia article. But it says how far the Earth is at its maximum and minimum distance, and the difference is about 5 million miles. According to Guzik, that means that life can't exist. So clearly he just doesn't know what he's talking about. He probably doesn't think about the frame of reference. A few million miles maybe doesn't sound like that big of a deal, or it sounds like a ton maybe, but it's really not. Because, it's about roughly 100 million miles away. So 5% may sound like a big deal, but it's not. Okay. Now, there's something else that I've been sort of avoiding talking about until now, because now we have all of the pieces in place. So on the first day, God created light. On the third day, God created the plants, and then on the fourth day, he created the sun. So there's this common complaint from atheists that, well, this doesn't make any sense. God created plants before he created the sun, which gives them light, which obviously they need to live, so this makes no sense. Which is true. Don't get me wrong, that's true. However, I would say it slightly misses the point because it's not... Let's go into their little world here. There is light, and so the plants have the light that they need to exist, and then the sun comes later. So there is light for the plants to exist on. The ridiculous thing is that he creates light before he creates the source of that light. So we're kind of getting at the same thing, but it's sort of from a slightly different perspective. So here's my armchair explanation for how these ancient people made this mistake. So think about the daytime. Look up at the sky. And the entire sky is full of light. It feels like light's coming from every direction. And then the sun is just this one little circle in one little part of the sky. Maybe they don't understand that there's a connection. Maybe they don't understand that, if you're looking near the horizon and the sun's there, if you look at the opposite horizon, the light from there is still coming from the sun. They probably didn't understand that. So they probably thought, well, God created the light that's sort of the ambient light over the entire globe. And then later he created the sun, which is sort of this one stronger part of light. I'm guessing that's where this comes from, and that's why it doesn't make sense. It just proves that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. All right, so that's my best guess as to how this mistake was made. Okay, now I have a couple of quotes from Guzik here. He says, Genesis tells us that light, day, and night each existed before the sun and the moon were created on the fourth day. This shows us that light is more than a physical substance. It also has a supernatural aspect. Right. It can't just be that those people don't know what they're talking about. Let's see. Also, he has this. So he's going to talk about the same people I was talking about. Those who propose these days of creation were not literal days, but successive ages of slow evolutionary development have a real problem. It is hard to explain how plants and all vegetation could grow and thrive eons before the sun and the moon. No modern evolution would argue that plant life is older than the sun or the moon, but that is what the Genesis record tells us. Yes, those evolutionists sure do look silly now. I mean, maybe it's the Genesis is wrong. All right. All right, we're in the home stretch because there's not a ton that I have to talk about on the rest, but let's go ahead and move forward. Let's see, we're on the fifth day. Verse 20. And God said, let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the heavens. So he's going to create all the sea creatures and the birds. So God created the great sea... Oh, here I am summarizing something that's going to be said again. So God created the great sea creatures with every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the sea, and let the birds multiply on the earth. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. You know, I never thought about this till just now, but that whole idea of it being literal days, if he's telling these birds and fish to be fruitful and multiply, to fill the ocean and the sky, how could that happen in one day? Maybe it does have to be eons. Oh, whatever, this doesn't make sense anyway. All right, moving forward to the sixth. Did I have anything to say here? Nope. Okay, day 6, verse 24. And God said, Let the earth bring forth all living creatures according to their kind. I love the way that we describe all of the land animals. Let me see here. Livestock and creeping things and beasts of the earth according to their kind. And it was so. Really? That's how you describe all land animals? And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Right, so everything according to its kind. I got it. Then God said, okay, this is an interesting verse. Then God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of heaven, and over the livestock, and over all of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Okay, so let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Who is God talking to, and who is us? Who is we? Who is our? Now, I think the standard explanation is the Trinity. Of course, it can't be in the Holy Spirit's likeness because he's just a ghost. But I suppose it could be God, the Father, and Jesus. I think it makes a lot more sense to think of this as there's a pantheon of gods, and God the Father is talking to the other gods. I don't really have a deeper point here, except that, I don't know, I think it's much more likely that we have a pantheon we're talking about here. And now we're just going to repeat ourselves a few times and call it done. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. All right, so he created man, finally. And God blessed them. And God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, over every living creature that moves on the earth. All right, so that's the second time he said that he has control over everything, and we got one more. And God said, Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Okay. So that is the end of the reading. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about, which I sort of talked about a little already, but so I think it's pretty obvious that these people don't understand anything about science. They don't understand anything about how the world came to be the way it is. And I mean, on my Kindle, this was what, 3 or 4 pages. I think in an actual Bible it would be maybe 2 pages. I don't know. Is what I just read the reason that people can't accept evolution? Because that is so ridiculous. I don't even know how to express it. But I don't want to jump to conclusions here. So I went ahead and looked a little bit. I went to Answers in Genesis, and I found, between this and the next chapter, which is chapter 2, which we'll do tomorrow, yes, that is pretty much the reason they don't accept evolution. Let me read this paragraph from Answers in Genesis. It is important to note that the order of events listed is not compatible with current secular thought about the origin of the universe and life, and thus precludes any attempt to allegorize the text to fit unbiblical ideas. So they're saying, well, he's saying the order is screwed up. What the scientists think it is doesn't match with the Bible, so let's not even bother considering the science. That's what that just said. All right, continuing. For example, evolutionism posits that plants did not appear until after the sun coalesced and the first life appeared. However, the biblical account is quite clear that God created plants even before he made the sun. I mean, how can you argue with this? It's insane. It boggles my mind that short thing that I read in, well, 25 minutes, but that's because I'm going on and on about these things. I mean, if you just read it and that was it, you could probably do it in 5 minutes if you didn't do any commentary. And it's written in a couple of pages. That is the reason that they're rejecting everything about, every bit of science points to evolution, but they're rejecting it because of this stupid little bit of text from these ancient people that clearly didn't understand what was going on. I just think it's unfathomable. All right, well, that's all for the first day of the Old Testament, so that was kind of fun, and I got to rant, which was fun. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will join me tomorrow for Genesis 2. And once again, if you are enjoying the show, the best thing that you could do to help me out at this point is to help me get more listeners. And so if you know somebody who you think might enjoy this type of podcast, please just pass it along. So thank you very much for listening, and I will see you tomorrow.